Hey everybody, and welcome to the next recap of my Lost Mines of Phandelver game. So, without any further ado, let's get on to what was happening last time. A quick little brief what happened. They were in Cragmaw Hideout, which is a cave filled with a bunch of Cragmaw goblins, and they had gotten to a point in the cave where they were fighting a particularly nasty group of them, and we're handling it fairly well. One of the heroes did, however, go unconscious. One of our clerics cast Spare the Dying to keep Zanya, there we go, alive, just unconscious for the next couple of hours. And the guy one of the guys that they were rescuing, Sildar, the old male human fighter, was left unconscious as well for 2 hours. Our group took a short rest. They decided to not wait one more hour, but to leave Zaina and Sildar in the care of Yimik, this second in charge goblin in this cave, and one of his goblins with him. So they left her and him there and proceeded on to find Clarg. They had made a bargain with Yimik that if they brought back Clarg's head, Clarg would not only let them take Sildar out of the cave, but he would also give them a reward of unknown type. They left, went in further into the cave. They crossed over the bridge because they were now on the up to its level, and right as the last person crossed, the timer ran out, and a wave came underneath the bridge. I kind of was leaving it because they left it to the heaviest person, which the bridge had no weight limit to it. But if there were waves crashing and someone freaked out and tried to sprint across in chainmail, this bridge is meant for goblins. I would have then rolled the dice to see if it would have fallen, and I would have rolled percentile, probably given it like a 25% chance, 1 to 25. You're falling into the water, and everything up. It's fine. But regardless, they got past the bridge. No problems. The water rushed. Made them kind of freak out a little bit, like, oh, whoa, we're okay? Like, and I explained that the water was rushing underneath the bridge, making it sway a little bit, but not really catching it. From here, they proceeded into the next room. They didn't really go stealthily or anything, and up in front is our little halfling ranger with a light, with a torch, torch. So that illuminated the area. They 100% already knew they were coming, but this allowed them to also get in one attack before they knew they were walking into a room of goblins. There were 4 goblins in this area, because one earlier had been on the lookout at the bridge and saw them coming. When they first entered the area, the halfling took an arrow to the shoulder, and then everyone rolled initiative. We went into battle. Prior to that, I think is when I described the room. They walked in, and it was an area with a waterfall off to the right that filled into 2 large pools of water that were now empty, and the water was just freely flowing there. So that gave them the idea that, this is where the water came from. There's no more water that's going to rush. These guys broke the walls here and here, and that's where the big rushes of water that came from. From here, they proceeded into the fight. After the first goblin was down, it was then the turn of the goblins, and one that was kind of hiding behind a rock took off and left up the stairs. So when they walk in, There were stairs over here. There were stairs that way. The rock was just in between that and the stairs. The guy just took off and peeled up the stairs. Over on the far end was one holding his crossbow or short bow and firing from a distance, because behind him was a new player. We had a new guy come in today, first guy of the group. One of the girls, it's her brother, which is my wife's cousin, and he came in. I said, we'll do a pre-generated character. If you don't like the character, then we'll find a way to get your character out and bring a new one that we create together in. He said, no, I'm fine with it. You know, he like his sister. This is our cleric that intimidated the goblins so well earlier. No idea what he was getting himself into. Knew it was a game. Knowing him, I know some of the video games that he's played and everything like that. And I said, okay, well, let's talk if you were playing Skyrim. And I laid out the remaining pre-generated characters. We had already used the cleric, so I laid out the wizard, I laid out a fighter, and I laid out a rogue. And I said, I pointed to each one and kind of gave it in a Skyrim type manner. I said, okay, this guy is your sword, and he's going to be running around swinging his sword at people, killing them with the sword in hand-to-hand combat. This guy is more of your spellcaster, and he's like, oh, mage. And I was like, wizard, but yes, just like a mage. And then this guy over here, and this guy over here would be your more sneaky, stabby, hiding in the shadows, popping out at people type of character. And fairly happy that he went with the rogue. I've been wanting to kind of get more into some different types of characters, just so increasing my knowledge, because this is my first game I'm running. I've only been playing this D&D for about a year to a year and a half now, and so getting that information, having to know this stuff. Thankfully, watching all sorts of videos and things like that, I knew just a quick glance over his character sheet, it gave us some of his abilities. I knew how they worked and how to remind him of some of that stuff, which was nice and helpful. So he was bound. Back to the story. He was bound and tied up, but he was waking. He was waking up enough to see that there was a torchlight up ahead. He himself is a halfling as well. So there's a torchlight up ahead, so he could see the light because he doesn't have dark vision. And from that he can tell that there's a small goblin-like figure in front of him. His story was he came into the cave, which I don't even know if we got to, but he came into the cave looking for a group that we'll find later on in the game, and that he came in looking for them because he wanted to get some revenge on them, and he tried sneaking around, failed a stealth check or whatever, got knocked out, and was dragged to this part of the cave. So I had him do I wanted him to try and figure out, this is kind of my introduction to the game for him, like, here's how it starts. You're tied up. You need to figure out how to get out of this. And so he started looking through his inventory and things like that. He doesn't have a dagger. He has a short sword, which I thought was interesting. I didn't realize the pre-generated character didn't even give the rogue a dagger. But hey, that's how it is. So what he did was he's like, can I use my thieves' tools? And I thought about it for a minute, and I thought, okay, well, I had to think about how you go about picking a lock. You can do this and that. Oh wait, there's a little blade. Not really a blade, but it would be thin and sharp enough to cut through after some time. That you use to push on the pins in the lock. Okay. So I said, yeah, there's a small little blade within your thieves' tools, And I went ahead and let him know that this is a sharp one because, hey, with your thieves tools, you're not just picking locks. You are, and this is a little bit of DM freedom here. I kind of just went and said, yeah, you're not. It's not just for picking locks. You're always going to be bound and tied, right? So you've got a little bit of a file, small little file in case it's metal, and a little bit of blade for rope. And so that gave him more than enough to do it. And I gave him a sleight of hand check with advantage because the goblin was distracted by what was going on the other way. But I didn't want him to just be like, cutting my rope. I wanted it to feel like he was accomplishing something by it. Very low DC on it. I think I only put a 10 DC on it. He beat it every time, no problem. So he got his hands untied first, and we moved on to someone else's turn. Went through more of the fighting, let him do it on his legs, and just as he snapped, here's that of the ropes snapping on that final hit. I believe someone killed the goblin in front of him, and the 3 goblins in this area were dead. So he got up, and he and the group kind of tried to figure out who he was and what he was doing here, and should they trust him to go along with them in this adventure. And he kind of had to fight and say, "Listen, I'm really good at not being seen. I am very handy if we need to get into places that are locked. I am." What else did he say? He's like, and I know where to go to find people and things. So I thought he did well with that, and the group kind of said, group's like, yeah, no, that's going to be helpful because we're about ready to go into this town. So, so from there, they tried doing a little bit of investigation up ahead. They wanted to see. They saw the one goblin run away. They wanted to see where he ran to. So they actually sent him up there first. Pretty sneaky. Found it. Gets advantage on stealth checks or dexterity-based checks. So he goes in there and he does really well. And he sees, and if any of you know the room, they're supposed to be just right there in the room. Well, I figured if someone went up and warned them, they were going to fan out and try and ambush whoever comes in. But he rolled also really well on his perception. So I said, okay, well here you see this goblin see a goblin foot hanging out behind the nook over here. And he was just kind of like creeping up on the edge of the stairs and everything like that. You see a goblin foot over here, goblin foot over here. You see a goblin arm behind the barrel straight in front of you. And over on the far side, you see paws, but pacing back and forth. Now, this was a clue for the rest of the group. They had already come up. Someone had already come up the chimney, and it's no longer Amber. She changed her name to Celine. Our dwarf cleric had come up and already done some investigation on this room, so they knew there was at least 2 goblins. They knew there was a wolf, and they knew there was a bugbear. So they figured out this is the room that we're going into. But they didn't know where the bugbear was. He was tucked around a corner, and was gonna come out and just lay waste, right? So, and my wolf at this point failed his smell perception check. Compared to his stealth anyway. So then they were talking about how they should proceed, how they should do this. Up went the half-elf cleric. Was perceived by the wolf. Boom! Out it goes straight after her, followed by 2 of the goblins. The one was hiding behind the barrel because he was supposed to come in when Clark did. This is kind of how I set it up in my head. So, and provide range support. So, at the stairs, we get 2 goblins and a wolf, and the wolf just out, lights out to our half-elf cleric. Meanwhile, the other cleric, by the way, has cast both of her level 1 spell slots, and therefore has no real healing at this point. Because everyone's still level 1. They drag the half-elf out of the way, Spare the Dying was cast, and then they proceeded to continue with the fight. Before the bugbear's initiative, before Clark's initiative, the wolf died. This was his wolf. It was kind of in the manual. It's a thing that once this happens, he's going to get out of there because his wolf was dead. He doesn't have half his protection. He doesn't really trust the goblins to protect him. So he took a few steps out, saw that his wolf was dead, and I in my head I'm looking at the map and I'm tracing out his path. He would have gotten to the chimney area, and then my other goblin, having seen that happen, would have chased after him and dashed, and got to the chimney area. Clark threw him down while they were fighting the last 2 goblins, and then jumped down himself. And in that area were the 3 wolves that were still chained up. Now at this point, a lot of people would go, "Oh yeah, set the wolves and go and come up from behind," right? I thought about that, but I also thought it would be more interesting to have a villain that they really need to be paying attention to. Like, they don't know where he is. Maybe he'll pop up every now and then, right? We'll see. So I had him escape with the goblin and the 3 wolves, right? They kill the goblins. They search the area. They find a chest. They get some loot out of it, and the first real, like, oh yeah, this is definitely going to be a fun group, right? We've had other moments that were fun. I guess the cleric intimidating the goblin was a lot of fun, but in this cave, in the cave, this was great. They opened the thief and the 2 halflings, the thief and the ranger, the rogue, opened up the chest, and sleight of hand, both of them distributed the money that was in there to each other. Didn't tell anyone else about that. Turned around and said, "I've got 2 health potions. I've got 2 potions and a jade statue right here." They did some quick investigation to figure out what the potions were. Found out it was a health potion, and then gave the statue away to someone else. They took one of the health potions and administered it to Lyra, our half-elf cleric. Now, I've thought about this for a long time. I thought one of the things that was odd about administering a potion to someone who's unconscious is you have to be able to position their throat right, so that way you're not opening their lungs and drowning them. So I figured, okay, well, that's an average intelligence there to figure out. So I said, whoever administers this is going to have to make a medicine check, so they know to see if they know how to not drown someone. Or you can wait. I think it was 3 hours for her to wake up, because you roll a d4 every time someone is not brought back to health and are just unconscious. So our other cleric decided that because her +5 was there, they were going to have her do it. Had no problem. Actually, almost failed it. Rolled 85. So the health potion was administered, and our cleric was back to life. They went back At this point, a few of them went down the chimney because they noticed the marks and everything like that. Found that the wolves were gone, and that the track and the others went around the other way to make sure the rest of the place didn't still have anyone in it. They met back at that entrance of the doorway. Found out that Clark had boot scooted with his wolves and a goblin, and decided to go back and get Zaina. Finally, they grabbed their their tiefling bard, who was just now had just now woken up, and Sildar. At this point, they informed Yimik, the goblin, that Clark had left with wolves and all this. He didn't believe him at first, but then they talked about having killed the big wolf, and then it clicked in his head, oh, you killed Ripper! Of course. Clark had to leave. Yeah, so he got it. He said, no reward, but take the old man and get out, and we'll leave you alone. The group decided this was a good deal, so they all 7 of them against these 2 goblins. Regardless, they decided to leave and go back to the wagon. When back at the wagon, a couple of them wanted to say, "Oh man, I hope our wagon wasn't messed with." And so I had them do an investigation check, and I said, "Oh yeah, there were a few things kind of mislaid. Some of the branches and things you hit it with were moved aside." And so our ranger then decided to do a survival check on the tracks that they saw around. Found out it was Clark, one set of goblin tracks, one set of bugbear tracks, and a few wolf tracks. And but it also looked like they left in a hurry, like you had just missed them. So nothing was taken. I gave them the opportunity to then go take the wagon through and back to the hideout, so they could grab up the provisions that they found where Clark's room was. And I didn't say that earlier. They found a bunch of provisions where they found the chest and everything like that. It was blue lion head crest on it, and they kind of figured that it was somewhere in the town of Phandalin, even though it didn't match the same symbol that they were taking their stuff to. So they loaded up what was good, and they took off. And the game ended with them cresting over the hill and seeing Phandelver for the first time. Just a couple of notes on this. So my first time GMing, I think one of my players didn't have as much fun. That was Zaina, because she was unconscious and the group decided to leave her for a couple of hours. Didn't really have a whole lot to do during this time, so I kind of used her to check on the wagon, make sure everything was all right, and because I didn't want to have her not do anything at all. So I think next time that someone goes unconscious or anything like that, and my party decides to leave, I think I'm going to play with the rules there a little bit more, and allow someone to be woken up. I mean, it wouldn't have hurt them to just say, yeah, we wait another hour. But they didn't. I think I should have pushed it into that. Might have changed things up, might have not. It might have changed the way things gone, and having a bard there would have been, and she would have been able to do a little bit more. I think that would have been good. But I honestly also expected them to come back and fight Yimik. Why wouldn't they have fought just 2 goblins sitting there? But as it is, Yimik lives. Clark and a goblin with both of those separate groups. One with Yimik, one with Clark. And Clark also has 3 wolves. So we have some more potential future threats that I can bring in if needed. They might not show up if I don't need them. So we'll see. And yeah, hope you guys had fun watching this video. Let me know what you think. And if you have any questions or anything like that, let me know. See ya.